As I walked through the IKEA showroom, I felt distressed. I wanted to sit down. I needed to sit down. But all of the couches around me looked like they would cause me severe back pain. They were lit up with fancy lights and smelled faintly of disinfectant. The whole showroom felt like the world's fanciest hospital. I desperately searched among the rows for something that would make me comfortable, but my search seemed hopeless. I walked around aimlessly until, as if by divine intervention, I noticed a maintenance room in the corner of the showroom. As I opened the door, a cloud of smoke escaped the abyss that hid beyond. The darkness before me beckoned.
"Come here, tiger,"
it whispered. I walked into the hallway. The door behind me closed. As I journeyed through the corridor, the smoke grew more intense, but so did my certainty that I would find what I was looking for. At first, it was only my footsteps that echoed through the darkness, but as I walked on, I could hear a far-off radio playing. A familiar song by the Stones grew louder as I approached a room at the end of the hall, yet the music was soon joined by sobs. Someone was crying. A fluorescent light bulb crackled in and out of life, yet it was strong enough to illuminate the small room. A dark-haired man in a worker's uniform sat by the edge of a familiar couch as he finished off stitching the last bits of flowery upholstery. He wept as he pulled out the thread and needle. His face was caked in grime, but the tears created 2 clear lines down his cheeks. When he saw me, he wiped away his tears and got up. The man composed himself, lit a cigarette, and walked over to me. He gave the couch one last look, but it wasn't a look of sorrow, it was a look of pride. The man looked back at the couch as if he had just walked his daughter down the aisle. Then he motioned towards it.
"Come here, tiger. I've been waiting for you."
The couch growled, with sex in its tone. I stepped towards the couch. The electricity in the air was back and stronger than before.
"I can make your wildest dreams come true, tiger. I can make you believe in heaven. All you have to do is fuck me."
I reached out for the couch. All of my nerve endings tingled with anticipation. I was millimeters away from nirvana. The universe had its gaze set on me and was about to reveal all of its secrets, but then my hand started to shake. It was gentle at first, but soon the convulsion spread through my arm. Within moments, I was down on the floor, my body throwing itself from side to side uncontrollably. The light bulb grew bright with a deafening scream. The world was crumbling at its axis. Pop! The room was plunged into darkness. "James! James! Wake up!" Carl's shadow stood above me. It was early morning. The room was still dim with dawn. Carl held 2 cigarettes in his hands. "We should go have a cigarette, friend." I was horribly dazed. His words didn't make a lick of sense. The only thing that seemed understandable was the voice in the back of my head.
"Don't listen to him, tiger. He wants to take me away from you. Don't let him get between our love."
I stirred on the couch. My fingers were deep in the upholstery. "I don't feel like smoking right now, Carl." Carl didn't move. "James, we have to take the couch outside. It doesn't belong in this house anymore. You and me should have a cigarette. We need to talk."
"He wants to hurt me, tiger. Don't let him hurt me. Do something. He has to be stopped."
I yawned and tried to look as sleepy as possible, but Carl's eyes stayed on me. "Mind if I nap for like 15 more minutes?" I asked.
"James,"
he started. His voice was cold. "We need to take the couch outside. We need to talk." I waited for the voice in my head to tell me what to do, but it felt quiet. I was abandoned. Okay, fine. No better way to start a morning than a bit of furniture moving and a smoke. I lumbered off the couch, put on my pants, and reached for one end of the couch.
"What's wrong with your hand?"
Carl asked. I looked down. My fingers were covered in a thick layer of red, as if I'd spent the whole night eating Cheetos. They were also bloated. My nails looked comically small, nestled in between thick puffs of red flesh. I waited for the couch to tell me what to do, but still it kept quiet. I don't know. Spent a good amount of time outside without gloves, I finally said. Carl looked over at my other hand, my perfectly normal hand that didn't spend the night inside of the couch, but he didn't say anything. We carried the couch outside in silence. It was oddly warm outside. There were still small piles of snow spread through the yard, but the neighborhood looked more like a muddy war zone than a winter wonderland. The couch remained silent until we dropped it off in the middle of the backyard.
"There's a knife in the kitchen, Tiger,"
it whispered. Carl lit up his cigarette and offered me the lighter. "I forgot my coat. Give me a sec," I said. I walked back into the apartment to fetch it. I went past the kitchen. When I walked out of the apartment, Carl was standing far off from the couch. He didn't register me walking out. His attention was purely focused on the mysterious furniture. Something was going on behind those small eyes of his. My bloated hand was shoved deep into the coat of my pocket.
"You know what to do, Tiger,"
the voice whispered.
"He wants to take me away from you, but you can stop him. Be my hero, Tiger. Be my hero, and I will bring you incomprehensible pleasure."
I walked towards Carl. I was shaking. "Want to sit?" I finally asked, dragging his attention away from the couch. Carl motioned towards the lawn chair. "You can sit if you want." He lit up a cigarette.
"One clean cut, Tiger. He won't see it coming. One clean cut through his throat."
I didn't sit. Carl's eyes drifted back towards the couch.
"There is something wrong with that couch, James," he started. "I was nervous yesterday. Mari's parents have always been very critical of me. They think I'm strange. Whenever I meet them, they talk to me like I've escaped from a mental asylum, like there's something wrong with me. But yesterday was different, James. Yesterday they made an effort. Maria's mother complimented me on my tie, and her father was willing to look in my eyes while we talked. During lunch, he asked me about my financial plans. I told him about Bitcoin."
Carl smiled.
Maria's father became very excited. He heard about cryptocurrency from his coworkers, but he did not understand it. I explained it to him. He was so impressed. He asked to see how everything works. He invited himself over to our apartment. Things were going well. I saw him smile. I thought things would continue going well."
Carl paused. His eyes drifted back to the couch.
"Things did not go well. When we arrived at the apartment, Maria and her mom stayed outside for a cigarette. I went inside with Maria's father to show him the computer rig. I wanted him to see in a couple of years I'd be able to provide for a family. I wanted to ask him if he would,
Carl's voice dropped to a whisper.
"Let me marry his daughter."
He took another puff and shook his head.
But we didn't get past the living room. As soon as he saw the couch, he stopped. He stood there, frozen, looking at the furniture. I tried talking to him, but it was as if he didn't hear me. For almost a minute, he stared at the couch, and then he jumped on it, and he started.
Carl trailed off. He looked back at the couch. An expression of utter disbelief danced around his face, but he struck it down.
Carl looked square into my eyes. Maria's father jumped on the couch and started to hump it. Even through the numbness of my fingers, I could feel the pointed edge of the kitchen knife. "Do it, Tiger. Do it for me. Don't let him tell you his lies. Kill the freak. One clean cut. The loud whore inside is still asleep. She'll be easier to get rid of. Do it, Tiger. Do it so we can be together forever.
I cleared my throat. Humping? I asked. Humping, Carl replied. He humped the couch with all his energy. I tried to get him to stop, but he wouldn't listen to a word I said. He just kept on pressing himself against the couch like it was some long-lost lover. I left when he started to take off his pants. I went outside to get Maria and her mom. I told them something was wrong with Maria's dad and that they needed to come inside right away. At first they didn't understand. They kept asking questions. Could they not finish their cigarettes? What was specifically wrong? Why was I so panicked? They were oblivious. But as soon as I mentioned the couch, James, as soon as I mentioned the couch, something sparked in Maria's mom's eyes. She ran inside the apartment, cigarette still in her hand, and dragged him out. Remember how angry she was when she caught you and Saleh the night after the party. Remember how we would joke about how crazy she was about the couch. James, the anger I saw yesterday was nothing compared to that. Maria's mother was furious. She slapped and hit Maria's dad until he was out of the apartment. She threatened him with divorce. She kicked and punched the man and then locked the door so he couldn't come back. She said that Maria's dad was obsessed with the couch when they started dating, that the scars on his face are from rubbing against the cushioning. The only way that Maria's mom and her grandma managed to get her dad back to normal was by hiding the couch while he went out to do his military service. After he came back, he kept searching for it. He kept on demanding that the couch be returned, but over the years he gave up. That's why Maria's mom wanted us to burn the couch when she saw it. That's why she demands we burn it now. There's something wrong with that couch, James. I sat on it last night while you and Maria were talking outside. There's something horribly rotten about that couch. As I sat there, I could feel it probing into my brain, trying to grab onto something. It was as if the couch was trying to find pain that it could use, pain that it could feed off. We have to burn it.
Slit his throat.
The voice boomed in my head.
Slit his throat and then slit her throat and then come to me.
I could feel my arm getting ready. I could already see the blood streaming through his beard. I kept on trying to remind myself that Carl is my friend, that I didn't want to hurt him, but every fiber of my being was being dragged towards murder. I took a step back. Can we burn it after New Year's? Are you okay? Carl's face suddenly turned concerned. You look pale, James. I took another step backwards.
A single slice, Tiger. He won't see it coming.
My legs turned to jelly. I leaned up against the wall. I wanted to take my hand off the knife. I desperately wanted to be as far away from the weapon as I could be, but my hands refused. Murder jumbled my mind. Images of death and pleasure and the couch filled my vision. I don't think I'm okay. Carl took a step forward. He planted his hand on my shoulder.
Just do it, you coward. Just do it. Don't let him get in the way of our love.
He sighed. Is this about Saleh? Yes. I find myself saying. The couch smells like her. I'm such a mess, Carl. I don't know how to get over this. I just want to be back. I just want to be back in high school again, and I want the four of us to be together again, and I want to drink every night. realized I was crying again.
Coward.
The voice whispered. Carl looked at me, visibly feeling awkward. His brow furrowed as he tried to figure out what to say. "We can still drink every night," he finally said, offering up a weak smile. I couldn't even manage a smile back. He frowned and thought for a bit more before he spoke again. "James, life is sometimes bad, and sometimes it is good. Things will not change. Saleh will not come back, but if you wait long enough, things will get better. You'll forget. You'll feel better. I'm not good with words, but I'm good with waiting. Me and Maria will wait with you until you are better." My hand slipped out of my pocket. It was empty. "Thank you, Carl," I said.
You're a coward.
The voice reminded me. The pieces started to fall together. The voice, the rat, the dreams, Maria's dad. There was something wrong with that couch. It needed to go. Yet there was still a part of me that couldn't handle seeing it burn. I needed time to prepare. "You're right about the couch. There's something off about it, but could we wait until after midnight to burn it?" Carl studied me. "Why?" "It's silly, I know, but I think getting rid of the place where me and Saleh had our first night would be a good start to the new year. Like a way to let things go." Carl considered the idea for a bit and then nodded. It felt like a burden was lifted. Maria joined us outside after a couple of minutes with coffee. The warmth of the cup felt soothing on my irritated skin. Being with the two of them felt soothing to my irritated soul. Suddenly things started to brighten. Saleh and me would never be back together. Hell, maybe I would never see her again, and the thought stung, but while I was in the company of Carl and Maria, it felt manageable. We set up plans for the rest of the day. By the looks of it, our last day of 2012 would be filled with walks to old places, falafel, booze. We sat down in the kitchen for some pre-drinking. I put the knife where it belonged when no one was looking. The time that it had spent in my pocket felt like a fever dream. Anything related to the couch felt like a distant memory. The whole morning, the voice had been silent. It was as if it had just satiated itself with calling me a coward and decided to abandon me. I returned the favor. Even though it was right outside the window, I didn't look at the couch a single time the entire morning. It was dead to me. In fact, I started to doubt whether it was ever alive to begin with. Yet as we headed out to town, I couldn't help myself. I looked back at the couch. It stood defiantly in the middle of the backyard, snow and mud all around it. This was not the same dusty couch Carl and me had dragged out of the garage. It was comfy looking, clean, even sleek. As Carl and Maria walked on, I could see the upholstery rumple into a wink.
We're not done, Tiger.
A voice faintly whispered in my mind.
Not by a long shot.
I ignored it and went out with my friends. We traced through our high school drinking halls. Talon's nightlife was always shifting around. Waiters and bartenders from Australia would sit at home, save up their money, and run to the Baltics to buy a bar. The bar would be a financial trash fire, and in under a year they would go broke. Yet the money that the expats blew on their dreams burnt bright. The names and owners of the bars might have changed, but the memories that we made within those walls stayed. We went through the shisha bar, where I would always celebrate my birthdays. The karaoke place, where Carl blew all of our minds. The hole in the wall where our band had its first gig. We hopped from memory to memory until we ended up in the grand melting pot. Hell Hunt Park. By day, Hell Hunt was a pub with a park terrace. By night, Hell Hunt was a pub with an adjoining noise complaint. As soon as the terrace closed down, teens from every corner of the city would crowd the benches of the park and drink. Even though most of our drinking began at Maria's place, we would often stumble through here. Hell Hunt was the place where our social circle would stretch. "They'll be closing it down soon," Carl said, looking at the mingling crowd of underage drunks. "Neighbors are complaining about the noise." "Screw those neighbors!" Maria drunkenly yelled at the windows. She was outpacing both of us. It wasn't even 10 o'clock and she was already drunk enough to forget the whole night. "If you don't like the noise, just come outside. Come and drink with us!" Maria yelled her offer to the windows. No one paid attention to her. Yelling was a regular occurrence in Hell Hunt. Maria stumbled her way over to the bench where Carl and me were sitting and collapsed between us. "You guys hear about Tinder?" That night was the drunkest I had ever seen her. "Tinder?" I asked. "It is an application for your phone where you choose strangers to have sex with," Carl said. Maria scoffed so hard she fell on my shoulder. "It's a love app. It's where strangers like James here, find love. What an exciting time to be single. You're just given a list of people and you go beep boop. Next thing you know, you're married." Maria lifted her head. She looked in my eyes as an air of utter seriousness and rum drifted off her. "But I swear to God, James, if you get married before me, I'll slit your throat." She burst out into a stream of giggles, managing to spill her drink in the process. "Whoops! Looks like Mama needs more jet fuel." Maria staggered up to her feet and started falling down in the direction of the pub. Carl got up and managed to catch her before she fell over. "I will come with you. James, you want anything?" I still had half a plastic cup of vodka Sprite. The two lovebirds went to the pub and left me alone with the crowd. I started to think about that Tinder thing that Maria was talking about. Maybe she was right. Maybe it was a good time to be single. I was in the country with the highest models per capita. I was a foreigner. I haven't been in a serious relationship for 6 months. There was something about having 2 breakdowns in the past 2 days that flooded the obsession out of me. I started searching the crowd for someone I would have swiped right on. That's when I saw her. She was standing at the edge of a circle of people. Some dude with dreadlocks was telling some story, and she was listening. Her hazel eyes drifted around. They caught mine. For a split second, we held each other's gaze. Then Saleh broke into a sprint. I ran after her. The old town of Tallinn is a lot less beautiful when you sprint through it. You can't appreciate the medieval buildings when you're in a mad dash. The cobbled streets definitely don't help that either. I ran after Saleh as the city turned into a blur around me. My head spun as I ran past the buildings. Old school field trips, karaoke, drunken trips to McDonald's, all those thoughts rumbled about. Yet above all of them, there was one solitary thought that reigned supreme. I had to catch Saleh. She ran with comical intensity, bumping into drunken crowds as she tried to get away from me. It was as if an animal was chasing her. Seeing that panic in her face whenever she looked behind to see if I was gaining on her started to crack something in me. We ran out of the old town towards the 2 big malls. Crossing the road, Saleh nearly got hit by a tram. Something in me broke. I stopped. The absurdity of it all hit me at once. I was literally chasing her. She didn't want to talk to me. She wouldn't talk to me. For a couple minutes, I stood still, letting the celebrating crowds walk past me like I was a lamppost. I was wavering between rage and despair. I chose the latter and trudged my way back to Hell Hunt. Carl and Maria were still sitting on the same bench. He was nursing another beer, whilst Maria was chugging on water, insisting that she was just getting hydrated to do more drinking later on. It wasn't rare to lose your friends at Hell Hunt for 30 minutes. They didn't ask where I disappeared to. They could tell something was off, though. I tried to act cool, pretend that everything was fine, but it wasn't. I couldn't stay there. I just needed to go back to Maria's and just be alone. "What? You can't leave. It's New Year's Eve!" Maria groaned. She kept on touching my face as if that would put me in a more festive mood. "Do you want us to come home too? I'm sure we can see the fireworks from the backyard," Carl finally said. I think Maria might benefit from lying down. Maria protested. She was basically sober, after all. No, I think I need to be alone right now. Carl studied me for a bit, but finally nodded. We will be back after the fireworks. There are some games on my computer if you get bored. I appreciated the sentiment, but I wasn't in a mood for video games. Carl gave me the keys, and I made my way back to Maria's place. I moved past the crowds, heading towards the center. I prayed I wouldn't bump into Sally again. I rushed past the couch sitting in the backyard. I know couches don't have eyes, but I knew it was watching me. It was silently waiting for me to slip. There was a half-drunk bottle of moonshine on the living room floor for my pre-drinking. Just like any 19-year-old European boy, the prospect of booze to dull my sadness leapt out at me. I tried to wash out the sting of rejection with the alcohol, and for a while it helped. It dulled the pain. But the drunker I got, the more my eyes started to slide towards the window. The couch just sat out there in the backyard, mud all around it, awaiting execution.
I told you we weren't done,
It whispered.
Come outside, Tiger.
I took another pull of moonshine. I realized I needed a cigarette.